The A-League Women's Semi-Finals on 9-man Macarthur FC defeat Sydney FC and Perth Glory pick up the wooden spoon for this year in the A-League Men's. Hey guys, my name's Lockie, this is Coastwatch Football. Let's talk about all the action across the A-Leagues from the past weekend, and we kick off with the A-League Women's Semi-Finals. First leg this weekend, second leg next week, but Newcastle Jets were hosting Melbourne City. I mean, the big piece of news out of this one straight up is the fantastic crowd figure that they had up in Maitland for this one. Over 6,000 fans turned up, which was awesome to see. Melbourne City picking up a 3-0 win. Just too much quality and class from City, who got the job done in the end. Again, you look at the stats, it looks like a pretty even story, but too much class and quality, especially in the final third from City. Shelby McMahon, really nice finish. That chip over the keeper was fantastic. And they hold a massive advantage now heading into the second leg at Amy Park. You'd think surely now Melbourne City are in a fantastic position to not only qualify for the grand final, but host it. Obviously, they finished first, so they get the opportunity to host the grand final, and it could potentially be against Sydney FC. They picked up a 1-0 win in the first leg away to Mariners. Mackenzie Hawkesby with the goal in this one. A match that I thought was pretty evenly contested, and Mariners had some fantastic opportunities, especially in that second half. We're really pushing Sydney FC. Ergamal hitting the post at one point. Again, a similar story compared to the other semi-final as well. Pretty even when you look at the stats. So many chances for either side as well. But Sydney FC with a narrow lead heading into the second leg. And that second leg at Leichhardt Oval next week should be interesting, man. Mariners are really going to push Sydney FC. And we know Mariners did defeat Sydney at Leichhardt Oval earlier in the season as well. So fantastic couple of matches coming up next week in the A-League Women's Semi-Finals, second leg. But Sydney FC and Melbourne City holding the advantage at this stage. Let's jump into the A-League men's action. And Friday night, a lot of drama across the whole weekend as this is the second last round in the regular season. Newcastle Jets holding Wellington Phoenix to a 1-1 draw. It's enough to get Wellington top of the table. Obviously, Mariners did not play this weekend in the men's competition due to the fact that they weren't in the country. They were still returning home from overseas. I believe they did return home on Sunday, but a bit of a debacle there for the Mariners. But for Wellington Phoenix, this is a bit of a debacle for them, you get to say, on the road to the Jets. Almost lost this one as well. An own goal from Alex Paulson, an uncharacteristic error from a guy who's been absolutely unbelievable in goals for the Knicks. Costa Barbarouses showing up in the crucial moment as he's done so many times this season, scoring late on in the second half. And I mean, the drama right at the end as well. Alex Rufa for the Knicks having a chance, having an opportunity from the penalty spot to put Phoenix ahead and give them a huge advantage on top of the table. Missing the penalty, that could be huge in the context of the premiership race. Check out the stats too. I mean, Phoenix, it's not too often we see this where Phoenix are really dominating the shot stats, especially from away from home. They generally focus on defense rather than attack, but they were really chasing this game. You could sense that there was a lot of urgency for Wellington to get a result from this game. How about that? Newcastle Jets, 18 shots. They did have some good opportunities, and just one of those on target, which sort of a little bit, I guess, sums up Newcastle's Jets season this year. A lot of trying and pushing, but not too much reward for the Jets this year, who held on for a draw. And look, Newcastle Jets will be really hoping that they can stop the Mariners' premiership hopes as they host them in the F3 Derby next week. Let's jump into Saturday's games. Western Sydney Wanderers 1, Melbourne City 2. This was a huge game with Wanderers on 6th, City in 7th heading into this game. Those two teams have now swapped. Melbourne City, man, getting it done in the first half. To Natel and that Yakalish with the goals. Two nice goals as well, but just some poor defending, especially in that second goal, just backing off and allowing those City attackers into dangerous areas and, grabbing the goals. Credit to Marcus Eunice, who grabbed his first A-League goal as well, the youngster who looked really bright off the bench once again for Western Sydney Wanderers. It's fascinating too when you look at the stats, isn't it? I mean, just 2 shots on target for City were the 2 goals. Clinical. Western Sydney Wanderers were the team who were pushing late on to try and keep their finals hopes alive. They are still alive. They aren't, completely done, but it is going to be tricky. They really need a result next week away to Melbourne. Victory City getting the job done. A massive win to put them back into the top 6. Again, Leckie involved in midfield, who was strong in this game as well. City finishing the season pretty strongly, you're going to say. So credit to them. They're doing all right at the moment. City's rivals, Melbourne Victory, they were held to a scoreless draw at home against Brisbane Roar. A funny game, this one, man. I mean, Roar, check out these stats as well. This sums up the game. Roar, so many chances. Really could have had 3, 4, 5 goals in this game with the number of clear-cut chances they had. Victory only managing to rack up 8 shots, having to do a lot of defending. They're on the back foot for much of this game. That was mostly due to that red card to Jason Gary just 6 minutes into the second half. Really affected things for Victory. It meant that they did have to sit back. But Victory in sort of this comfortable situation where they look set to hold on to third place now on the ladder. It's unlikely that they're going to drop away from there. So nothing too concerning, just a safe defensive performance from Melbourne Victory. Brisbane Roar, they'll be so disappointed that they didn't at least come away with a win here, because massive opportunity to do so despite being out of the finals race. Check out the corner stat down the bottom as well. These stats coming from Google. 13 corners for Brisbane, no corners for Victory. Again, that sums up the narrative in this game. And then Saturday night, we did a live watch along for Macarthur FC, Sydney FC, the little brother, if you like, the youngest brother of the Sydney clubs, Macarthur, getting it done over the big brother in Sydney FC. 1-0. Jedrew with a late goal in the first half. All the drama, though, was around those red cards. Ivan Vujica, I mean, a real questionable decision from the referee, I think it has to be said. And I think we're all thinking that too. And it was interesting too, seeing in like the post-match interviews, even the Sydney players, I think it was Joe Lolly, who was, questioning that decision. And he was the one on the receiving end of the foul, of the high boot from Ivan Vujica. The Tommy Smith red, I think, is a fair one for me. I think whenever you raise your hands or arms in and it comes, it's a close contact with an opponent's face, you're always going to run the risk of a red card there. But the defensive grit and determination from Macarthur, getting them through in the end. Tommy Uskok was massive in this game, and it was a makeshift sort of back four. And at the end of the game, they were just simply playing like a 4-4 formation. Macarthur, they had no attackers, but credit to the whole team who put in a massive effort. Sydney FC pushing. But even though they did get into plenty of good areas and create chances, there weren't necessarily many clear-cut chances. There was a lot of long-range shots. Luke Bratton was having goes from long range as well. Joe Lolly was dangerous, but unable to break through Macarthur FC. It makes it interesting as well as we flick over to the ladder. Macarthur now up into fourth. They overtake Sydney, but next week it's going to be interesting. Macarthur have a tricky match away to Wellington. Sydney host Glory, so you'd think Sydney should be able to get a result at home against Glory to jump back into fourth place. Interesting there's all sorts of interesting narratives all across the ladder as we head into the final round of the season. And then on Sunday, of course, Mariners and Adelaide postponed. Perth Glory 3, Western United 4. Plenty of goals, plenty of fun, but you got to say it's all these goals are coming down to look, you could tell that these two teams are at the bottom of the ladder, considering some of the defending that we saw in this game. Really questionable errors. Even someone like Tomoki Imai, who is Western United's most experienced player, and uncharacteristically getting caught in possession at the back, allowing Perth Glory to score a goal. Adam Taggart with a couple goals in this game to take him top of the Golden Boot race. That's a really fascinating race at the end of the season. But Grimaldi, Danzaki, Walati with a debut goal, as well as Ollie Laval, who scored his first A-League men's goal as well. So another decent outing for Western United in front of goals, which is, as the department that they've struggled in this season. So good to see that they're finishing the season grabbing some goals, which is nice to see. Glory, disappointing, man, especially coming off last week's, shock result, that 8-0 loss, conceding 4 here at home despite scoring the 3. Worrying finish, concerning finish to the end of the season for Perth Glory, who have officially now picked up the wooden spoon. Let's have another look at that ladder. Bottom of the ladder, cannot catch Western now in 11th place. Real disappointing for a club like Perth Glory, man. I mean, this is their second wooden spoon in 3 years. and there's a massive off-season coming up. They really have to rebuild this club, rebuild the squad, and get them competing again, and get them at least winning games at home, and tighten up defensively. I mean, you look at the ladder here, what is that? 62 goals conceded. 62 goals conceded, which is just a ridiculous amount of goals conceded, especially considering that they've got, the top goal scorer in the league in Adam Taggart, yet they're sitting bottom of the ladder. It's not often that you see that scenario. So, fascinating battles all across as we head into the final round of the season. Wellington just 1 point ahead of Mariners. Central Coast, of course, have 2 games to play this season. Victory should be able to hold on to third place, but Macarthur are just behind. Sydney, big game next week at home against Perth Glory. Melbourne City looks set to hold on to the 6th place unless Wanderers get a win against Melbourne Victory. Brisbane, Adelaide, Jets, Western and Perth all out of finals contention to finish off this season. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this round and all the action in the comment section. Thanks so much for tuning in. As I mentioned, my name's Lockie. This is Coastal Football. See you in the next one.